Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in June. So in June I read a total of 7 books, 3 of them I listened to on audiobook and 4 I read physically. All of them were adult fantasy except for 1 which was adult sci-fi. I also had 1 DNF and unfortunately that was on my 5-star predictions, so looking at it like that, I didn't have the best reading month in June, but I also had some amazing reads, so it kind of balances out, I suppose. But without further ado, let's get over the books in a chronological order, starting from the one that I picked up first. And that one was The Dark Mirror by Juliette Marillier. This is the first one in the Reread Chronicles, which is a trilogy. And if you know me, you know that I like everything by Juliette Marillier that I have picked up so far. Unfortunately, I haven't read all of her works yet, so I'm making my way through them. Now, The Dark Mirror is one of the first novels that she's ever written, if I'm not mistaken, and I really enjoyed this one. In this one, you follow Bride, who is the son of a king, but he goes to a druid when he is very young, and he stays there as a foster child to be basically scholared by this druid. One day, when he is still very young, he finds a baby girl on his doorstep, he takes her in, and he wants her to stay there. He immediately feels a connection. However, it's quite clear to everybody else that she is a member of the fair folk, and they are a little bit afraid of her. So you follow these two people and their relationship, and how it evolves when both of them grow up. I really enjoyed this one. It was a little bit difficult to get into at first, but Juliette Marillier just has a very slow writing style, but once you get invested in the characters, you don't really mind. As always, her writing style is very whimsical. I thought that this was an amazing read. I definitely liked the POV of the girl, which is Tulua, if I'm not mistaken. But also Bride was very interesting to watch, and especially how their relationship evolves was one of my favorite parts in this story. So I do hope that I will be able to pick up the second book pretty quickly. Now, what I must say is that with Juliette Marillier, I often really enjoy the first book in a series. The same is true for the Seven Waters trilogy. And then the second and the third one, it follows somebody else in that world more often. So like the next generation, or somebody that was a side character in the first book, which is the case for the Bride Chronicles. In the second one, you follow Anna, who is a side character in this one. And often the second and the third book, they're good, but they're not nearly as good as the first one, in my opinion. So I'm quite interested to see if the same is true for the Bride Chronicles. So hopefully I will get to know soon. Next up, I finished the audiobook for The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Tawnyman trilogy, which is the third trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. So here we follow, of course, again, Fitz and everybody else who is close around him. I love this one. This is probably, at this point, my favorite book in the entire realm of the Elderlings. I'm currently listening to the third one in this series, which is Fool's Fate. Again, it's amazing. It is very heart-wrenching. And also in the second one, it's definitely set up for the third one, and you know that things aren't going to end well and that you're going to cry a couple of times. So I'm looking forward to that in a strange way. But on the other hand, I'm also a little bit afraid. In this second one, you have also some connection to the Lifeship Traders trilogy, which I adored, because that's like the odd one out here. You have the entire story of Fitz, but then you have the Lifeship Traders and the Rainwild Chronicles, which is the quartet after this trilogy. So I really like that there was some more connection to that, and I do hope that we will still have that in the third book that I'm currently listening to, but I'm not that far in. So hopefully that is going to be there as well. But yeah, I loved it and my hopes are high for the third one. Then I finished another audiobook, and that is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. So I read the original Red Rising trilogy a while ago. I have a review up for that. This is the first one in the second trilogy, so 15 years later than the events of the first one. And here, of course, you also follow Darrow, but this is multi-POV, while the first one, or the first trilogy, was just one POV, the POV of Darrow. And that's why, even though I really enjoyed this one, it was a little bit difficult to get into. Multiple POVs are always a little bit tricky to pull off as a writer. Most people have a couple of POVs that are really invested in, and then they have some that they just don't care about. And in this one, because you already know Darrow, you're invested in his storyline. And in the beginning, you don't really understand where the other POVs are connected or how they are connected to Darrow's storyline. So that made the book drag a little bit for me in the beginning when we weren't with Darrow and his story. But after a while, you could see where the connections were and how the different storylines were going to be combined with each other. So I did really enjoy this one, but it didn't really come close to how I felt about the second and the third book in the original trilogy. So I'm quite excited to see if the next one, Dark Age, is going to be in the same vein as this one, or because I now know all of the POVs and are interested in them, if I will like Dark Age better. And then I finished another physical read, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So this was part of a 24-hour readathon over at Stacey's channel, so Stacey's All Booked. I didn't finish the book in 24 hours. It's 700 pages almost, I think, so that would have been kind of a stretch, but I did finish it in a couple of days, which is still very good for me and my reading speed, and I really enjoyed this one. For ACOTAR, so the first one in the series, I wasn't really convinced. I thought the plot was pretty predictable. I didn't really like the character development. I think that this is definitely improved in this one, where the main character does have some trauma from the first one that she needs to overcome, that she has some issues with. I always like when you have that in a book. I also like the romance a lot more in this one, and it had some twists that I wasn't really expecting. So, of course, if you pick up these books, it's mostly for the romance. You're not going to pick it up because you are going to expect a lot of political intrigue or anything like that. But the romance was very solid, and I actually enjoyed the story as well. So I'm quite excited to pick up the third one, hopefully soon. And then I finished another physical book, and that is Valor by John Gwynne. So this is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. I am doing a read-along that I'm co-hosting together with Steve over at Steve Talks About Books and stuff. And we have a spoiler-filled discussion for this one that I will link down below and up in the cards. I really enjoyed this one. I already enjoyed Malice, but I could definitely see the downsides in Malice, especially for the dialogue that felt a little bit clunky sometimes. Also, the internal monologue was sometimes a little bit too on the nose what people were feeling, more like I'm telling you this instead of I'm showing you how these people are feeling. So it definitely had some downsides, but I just enjoyed it for what it was. And that definitely was the same with Valor. I think that Valor was better than Malice, especially because I liked where Corbin's storyline was going. I love Corbin, I love everything about him and his storyline, so that's something that I definitely enjoyed in this one. There were some POVs that I didn't like that much, but still a very solid read, and I cannot wait for the third one because I have heard that that one is actually the best one of the entire series. So my hopes are very high, especially because I think that of everybody who is joining us for our read-along, I was definitely the one who liked Malice and then Valor the most. So I think that I will probably like the third one the most as well. Then I finished another audiobook, and that is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is also a read-along that's going on over at For Booking Out Loud's channel, that I will also link down below because we are going to read The Burning God in July. Quite excited for that. This is definitely a chunker, and of course I loved The Poppy War. The Poppy War was a 5-star read for me. I really liked Brynn. I know that she's not a likable character, that a lot of people don't like her. I understand her in a lot of ways, and I do think that at the very least she's a very interesting character, and I'm not annoyed by her in any way. Now the first one, The Poppy War, you have that school-like setting, and then you have the second part that feels completely different from the first part. I like both. I definitely like school-like settings and having a mentor and stuff like that. In this one, it's a lot more grimdark. A lot more things happen in this one that you're not expecting, that are definitely taking the wrong turn. You are afraid if everything is going to end up right and in the end. And I think that that's why the first half I had some troubles. But I can definitely see that it was very well crafted, that it was very well done. But it annoyed me sometimes that things just didn't go the way they should go. The second half was amazing. I do think that the first book, The Poppy War, and this one are so different that it's very hard to compare them. I think that I might still like The Poppy War a little bit more than The Dragon Republic, but still I think that both are amazing reads, and I cannot wait how The Burning God is going to complete it. And then the last book that I finished, this one I actually finished a little bit later. It was already in July, but I figured that I was going to conclude it in this one because these wrap-ups are just what did I read recently. I'm not going to look at the date specifically, and that is a reread for Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. So we are doing a read-along together with Steve and Epic over at Epic Tales for the Raven's Shadow trilogy. I read Bloodsong last year, absolutely loved it, 5-star read. I did a reread because we're going to discuss Bloodsong, and I will link the discussion video down below. And upon a reread, it's still amazing. I love Valen, I love the main character, I love all of the struggles that he needs to overcome and how he faces all of those hardships. I love the friendship in this book and how everything is just so difficult to get through. It's so realistic at times, it's heart-wrenching, but you understand. I feel like you understand the characters and how they act, and I love that you have... This is kind of a plot device that I just always like, where you have the main character who is telling his life story to someone else. And often it's said as a negative that, yeah, but it's not going to be a reliable source. But in this one, it actually toys with the fact that, yes, it's not a reliable source when you have the character telling his own life story. So I enjoyed that a lot. I also enjoy the world. I love the magic system in this one. It's not really a magic system, but the magic that's present in this world. I love it, and I cannot wait to read The Tower Lord this month. And I'm so glad that upon a reread, I still like this one. And you have some twists and turns towards the ending that if you read this as a reread, you already know that, so it gives you a completely different experience, and I also like that a lot. So I definitely ended the month-ish, because it was already July, with some book that I absolutely adored. And then the 5-star read, or the 5-star prediction that I DNF'd, and that is Skullsworn by Brian Staveley. I was 150 pages in of a 300-page book, and I cannot believe that I DNF'd a 300-page book. I could have finished it easily, but I was struggling so hard, and I was putting myself in a reading slump because I read like 10 pages each day, and I kept telling myself, okay, read one more chapter. You can read one more chapter, right? And I just wasn't enjoying it. I think I am a very character-driven reader, so I need to be invested in the character. I think that Peer, the main character in this one, is an amazing side character because her storyline and who she is in general, and basically she's a priestess who worships the god of death. So she is an assassin, but she doesn't really see herself as an assassin because she only does that to please her god. And there are certain rules that she needs to follow. So as a side character, that's pretty badass. But she felt pretty one-dimensional to me. That's who she is. She's an assassin, she doesn't really feel a lot. And then the plot also didn't really interest me because this goes back in time. So it's basically a prologue compared to the original trilogy, the Chronicle of the Unhoned Throne. And so in this one, she is still becoming a priest, and for her final test, she needs to kill a number of people according to a poem. So she needs to kill somebody who is laughing, she needs to kill a mother, but she also needs to kill somebody who she is in love with. However, she's never been in love, so she has now 14 days to fall in love with somebody. And the way that she goes about it is so... this is clearly a plot-driven book. It's not character-driven at all. The main character isn't interesting, she's one-dimensional. The plot is what it's about, and it feels a little bit artificial. If you need to fall in love with somebody, it's something that you cannot make yourself do anyway, but the way that she goes about it is a little bit strange. And I think that if the premise was just a little bit different, that made it more believable and realistic, I might have enjoyed it. But at this point, I wasn't invested in the characters. I couldn't care less if she was going to complete her quest or not, and that takes a lot of the reading enjoyment away, basically. So even though I'm very disappointed in this one, on the other hand, I'm also glad that I finally DNF'd some books, because normally I would keep reading it and it would take me months to finish it, but yay, I finished it. Now I just DNF'd it because I didn't like it. That's the way I should do it, and I should do it more often. But yeah, unfortunately, probably my biggest disappointment of the year at this point. So those were all the books that I read in June. 7 books, it's not the best reading month, it's also not the worst. I was hoping to read a little bit more, especially because I was participating in the Olympics readathon, but sometimes you just can't make it work. Still, I had some amazing reads this month, so I'm still quite happy. Please let me know which books you picked up in June and what your absolute favorite was that I should pick up as well. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye!